top of what they call a foredune. Essentially, the foredune is made up of sand that would normally be heading inland from the ocean and European beach grass. Beach grass actually kind of holds the sand together, grows over the top of it, so as sand would essentially travel on down the coastline and try to make it inland, it just gets trapped in there. Beach grass was introduced to the coastline in the 1900s and was introduced around the mouth of the Saisla River system, or in the Saisla area, which is where we're at, actually a bit north of here. Essentially, it was used to stabilize the mouth of the river. So the idea behind it was basically the concern of the sand blowing down the beach and then obviously clogging the port of entry to the Saisla into the city of Florence. And so they used it. It worked very, very efficiently. Again, it's a non-native plant into the area, and as it stabilized itself out across the sand dunes, it created that foredune. Foredune has an average height of somewhere between 25 and 50 feet tall, so it varies depending upon where you're at as you go along down the coastline. Now, the area that is behind the foredune, which is what we're traveling through now, is referred to as a deflation plain. Deflation plain is a low-lying area of dunes that is dominantly covered up by native growing forests out through here. So this would be an area that has been stripped of all of its sand dunes. That would bring it down to, or really close to, the water table levels. A lot of these areas of dunes are very prone to seasonal flooding because of the close proximity to the water table levels, and so we receive 80 inches of annual rainfall on average out here in these coastal areas, and very little of that ends up in the ocean. And we're talking about sand dunes here. So because of that, that allows for a lot of seasonal flooding in these low-lying areas. It allows aquatic grasses to stabilize themselves, and then the forest thusly comes in after the fact. And again, 80% of our sand dunes are actually forested. So here is another case where we travel through an area of dunes that used to be open sand. Now is just nothing but an extremely dense forest here out across these particular areas. Now again, still technically part of the sand dunes. They refer to this again, like I said, as deflation plain. Again, chock full of wildlife in these particular areas. There are only a few trails that take us through this deflation plain area because of how dense it is. And so there's 4 trails that run east and west. There's 2 trails that actually run north and south. And usually if you want to see a lot of the wildlife, it's going through the heart of the deflation plain. Like there's a road up here they actually called Hunter's Road. That's a pretty popular one. I was out here riding a couple of nights ago, seeing like 3 or 4 deer just on that one trail going out through the sand dunes. And so, like I said, quite a bit of wildlife. But, you know, the deer could be 10 feet off the edge of the trail. You'd really never even know it as you travel out through here. Now, most of the trails stay open year-round. There's a couple that do seasonally close, and they close because of the amount of flooding that we actually get out here. So, like Hunter's Road right there, there's some spots in there that they get water holes in them that are at least 4 feet deep. Again, we get 80 inches of rainfall out through here, so that's not uncommon to see 4 foot of water in some of these low-lying areas here. And because of that, they flood out. You can only get to some of the trails more during the summertime, usually starting around June or July, before the water table levels go down enough to even get a pickup through them.
Yep. He's right. You can't
make up the Sayusla Dunes that we'll see on our tour today. You can see here in front of us how the wind has already affected this deflation plain area, blowing all the dry sand and all the dunes off of it, leaving just right at that wet layer of sand, which is, like I said, really close to the water table level. Matter of fact, it's wet because that sand kind of actually wicks that water away from it. Now these areas are slowly getting stabilized. We lose about 20 feet of open sand dunes every year to the expansion of this deflation plain area. So it starts out as these little aquatic grasses that you can see basically to the right and left of us there, which are really kind of unique. Some of these are really pretty unique just to the region in itself. And then the forest essentially kind of comes in after the fact. And then even now this time of year where you see just kind of, you know, like I said, it's just wet sand. This floods during the wintertime. We get actually a couple inches of standing water sitting across the top of it. And by the time spring comes around, you can really see where those open areas were actually covered up by this deflation plain. So 20 feet a year. U.S. Forest Service kind of does some studies on it, and they estimate somewhere in the next 100 years or so, most of the sand dunes are actually going to go extinct because of that. And that process has been going on since the introduction of the beach grass in the 1900s. It's like I said, like 118 years now, and 80% of the dunes are actually forested. So it's not unreasonable to assume that another 100 years and most of what you see out in front of us will actually kind of be gone. Now, they do have some collaborations. I think the one that's going on right now is it's got some fancy name for it. I don't know. It's the Oregon Dunes Restoration Project. Yeah, I think that's what it is. And it's a mismatch of hikers and nature people and bird walkers and biologists and stuff like that. And they're all trying to collectively figure out how to, you know, do something with the expansion of the dunes, because the dunes, again, are a natural resource that are disappearing. So whether they come up with anything or not, I have no idea. But right now, like I said, the studies are showing about 20 feet a year of open loss of sand dunes.
Woo! Oh my gosh! Oh God! Yes.
So there you go. And
You
that's
mean
the
me?
uniqueness of the landscape out through here. We leave the beach, go through a flat forested area, and in no time at all, you're out here going down, you know, dunes that are nearly vertical in some areas, and looking at some that are, you know, a couple hundred feet tall. So again, very unique landscape that we have out in these particular areas. And on top of that, some more very unique features. To the left of us is what we call a tree island. This is number 4 of a series of 5 tree islands out in this particular area, all you put down on the use maps of the area. Great for navigation legs. You'll generally see more people use them in like law enforcement, search and rescue aspects, but you know, us as tour companies are real familiar with the tree islands and their locations for really specifically pinpointing different areas out through here. You'll see the water in the bottom of the tree island is really pretty common. Now those are just basically classified as a seasonal pond. Nothing really ever lives inside of them, but you'll see the tree stumps around the bottom edge of here as well, and it's part of forest that was out here one time. So this would be a different type of forest, obviously. Where we see now the dunes being covered up, it was the other way around. The dunes were actually moving out across different areas of forest, and then the tree islands were remnants of that. And then basically the ones that didn't make it, they're actually right here, you can see them. And seasonal ponds, that they may be at that, they can get actually really pretty deep. So if you accumulate over the years where you have really wet winters and then not a lot of evaporation throughout the summertime, tree islands can get as deep as 20 feet deep. And if you look along the bottom of that tree island right there, you can see that horizontal line where the high water mark was at even just a couple of years ago. So that would have been well above any plant, brush, stump, you name it, all the way straight across. Actually, we'd have been almost looking at water right now straight ahead of us just no more than 2 years ago. But go through 2 winters with more average rainfall instead of more than average. I mean, that one winter we had 120 inches of rainfall out here. It just filled everything full. It was just crazy to see the amount of water out through here. But like I said, average is about 80, so this is pretty common what you see here. Fills up during the winter, dries up as the summer goes along, and then by the time next spring comes around, this thing will probably have 10 feet of water in it or more. Everything.
Yeah.
Like I said, the first year I come out here, it's like a huge
This beats everything on my bucket list. Everything. Everything else is just ridiculous.
Out here, you can't make it up with ATV now.
Yeah. This was probably
So dunes themselves actually have their own unique name for the shape and the formation of them. So as we crest over the top of this little sand knoll here, what you're going to be looking at is what they call transverse sand dunes directly out in front of us. Now, transverse sand dunes are typically dunes that are classified between, like, say, just a couple of feet up to maybe 30 feet tall, and they're really seasonally affected by the northwesterly winds, and that's what you see here. So as you kind of look out to the front, to the left of the vehicle, these are areas that are generally flatter during the wintertime. So general formation of the sand is still here, but you will not see these drifting sand dunes and how they ribbon through these particular areas. They're pretty much non-existent. And then you have the 2 other types of formations. You have oblique and parabola, and depending upon the location of the dunes is whether they call them or not. So like this sand dune here is always here that we run this ridge on, but this dune the top of this hill might move like 60 feet to the north, which would be off to the right of us, as we receive really high winter winds coming out of the south. campground. It is year-round camping also. So pretty mild climate that we have here during the winters. We don't really get a lot of freezing conditions. Very rarely does it even snow beyond that. Year-round camping is kind of a thing. Now, as for popularity, as the fall goes along, Honeyman's not nearly as busy, but a beautiful day-use campground area nonetheless. So a lot of attractions during the summer months, like canoeing and kayaking and paddle boating. They're all rentals you can do out at the lake here. Beautiful place to go swimming at. Campground's got somewhere around 400 campsites.